Okay, I don't want to go too long because I have
Okay.
so much to say about this because I've been around Jamaicans in New York since I was a teenager. I've worked for Jamaican-owned businesses for decades,
Hmm.
and so I have some insight into this, including older Jamaicans who were born in the 1930s and 40s.
Hmm.
So uh, uh, I was hoping if it's not too much, first I wanted to go into Cool Herc's story about his history in Jamaica, his life
Sure.
story,
Yeah,
and
if you
take a few
know.
holes in that.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then I was hoping to say why the big Caribbean three, like some of the factors why I think that happened, but I can tell
Okay.
you
Yeah,
as a
good.
white person.
Okay,
And
sure.
also, maybe not time for it, but how Jamaicans actually did end up getting into hip hop, when and why. Okay, you mentioned the Windrush in the 40s. Jamaicans were in England early, and that comes into play later with why the big three Caribbean happened.
Hmm.
Cubans came in the 50s. You know, Colin doesn't want to talk about it, but the reason they were pumping Cuban music that the Puerto Ricans glommed onto in the 50s was
Hmm.
because the mafia was trying to set up Havana to be like Las Vegas and have their prostitution down there. If you saw The Godfather 2, they go into it. So
Yeah.
all those spots, Copacabana, Latin Quarter, those were mafia spots. And they were pushing Cuban culture because they had a whole scam going, and then the Cuban Revolution destroyed. It wasn't because the music was so good. That was the mafia. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So there were no Jamaicans in New York until after the Hart-Celler Act in '65.
Hmm.
Not significant. Okay.
Right.
Cool Herc keeps saying he's from Trenchtown. He's from Trenchtown. He is not. He's from
Right.
Franklin. He's from Franklintown.
Right. Right.
Franklintown is 5 communities east, and Franklintown was lower working class residential in the '60s. People have their own house. Trenchtown was the government yards, like public housing and political violence, and you couldn't even get a job if your address was Trenchtown. You couldn't write that on a job application, and it
Okay.
just doesn't add up. Yeah, he was in Franklintown, and he's full of shit. That's why he never goes back to Jamaica, because his whole
Hmm.
story is bullshit. Now,
Hmm.
um, sound systems back then, so if he came in '67, let's look at Jamaica in '65 and '66, the 2 years before he came. Okay, they
Hmm.
were not they were not making instrumental versions for people to toast over in 1965 and
Right.
1966.
Right. Right.
They started that like around 1970. Okay,
Right.
and there
Hmm.
wasn't these big clashes of this one against that one. Okay, it was
Hmm.
people were listening to what Jamaicans call souls. That's a genre
Hmm.
of music. That's Black American music. Fats Domino, Sam Cooke, and
Hmm.
country western and gospel, and maybe there were one or two calypso songs. He was
Right.
not in and around Trenchtown. That is a complete lie. Now the next
Right.
giveaway. In 1967, his whole family went to the Bronx at one time. 6 kids and 2 parents. Okay, that's not Trenchtown style. Trenchtown style is one person goes over and hustles and makes money to bring the rest of the family over.
Hmm.
He did not land it. They did not land in the Bronx, in the hood, or the projects. Um, Morris Heights and Highbridge, they were middle class neighborhoods. Those were big residential, almost like luxury buildings, like a brochure. Okay, it
Right.
got fucked up because they built the Cross Bronx Expressway. But you are not from the garrison, the ghetto, the hood, or nothing like that. So that's a big lie. And you see, he gets all Miss Cleo, and oh, the music was in the air, and I felt the vibrations. Yeah, right. That was what going on in that interview. Okay, next thing, you notice he said, I noticed that everybody was reacting when the good part of the record came on.
Right.
It
Right.
started going off. Yeah, no shit. Because dancing off and going off to the good part of the music was already a thing with Black
That's right.
Americans. I
That's
saw it
right.
as a little kid in 1970 and '71. If you want to be real about it, the musicians were putting the breaks into their music. There was no
Hmm.
breaks in Motown, but by the time it went into the '70s, Sly Stone, he'd go up and he'd do a song, it'd be 10 minutes long with instrumental breaks.
Right.
you know
Right.
and
Right.
there's a
Right.
lot of evidence to that. Black musicians were creating these percussive breakdowns in the music.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
for you to say, oh, they love this part and play it over and over, like that was Black Americans remember Car Wash? That song starts out with like a minute and a half percussive break before the song even starts.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so the breaks were already there. The toasting, the rappings like Muhammad Ali in the late '60s, Nipsey Russell in the late '60s, Dolomite was doing club dates. Speakers on trucks, we had that too here in America at political rallies. And West Indians used to get teased in New York. I saw it. All the Americans was wearing Tuskins and Pro-Keds and tube socks with stripes and knit shirts. And there's Waynesworth in the corner. He's got on dress pants and a button-down arrow shirt. and they were not cool at all. They were not cool at all. And Cindy and Herc is pumping this big lie because they're con artists. That's what they brought from Jamaica, towncraft. That means Kingstonian bullshit artistry.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so done with that. You're not from Trenchtown, Herc. Number two, the way the big three came from the Caribbean, because Jamaicans don't really claim they invented hip hop, to be honest. Jamaicans love Jamaican culture.
Right.
And anytime someone's in these comments, we West Indians did this, we West Indians, and you really ask them, it's like, okay, oh, your mother's from St. Vincent. Oh, and you moved here when you were 3, Jamaicans don't do that. The same way Cubans don't claim hip hop. It's the Puerto Ricans who don't have their own shit. I'm sorry, Cuban language.
That's okay.
So why did the Caribbean get promoted? A couple reasons. First, because of white people. White people find West Indians less threatening than Black Americans, hands down, full stop. So all those downtown journalists, and if you doubt me, Sidney Poitier was a mainstream Hollywood leading man movie star since the 50s, whereas Black Americans had to make their own blaxploitation genre just to get up on the screen. So that should tell you the whole thing. Whites think West Indians are less threatening than Black Americans.
That's true.
Yeah, as a white person, I co-sign this.
I hear you.
So it's like, and so the second thing is when Bambaataa started going downtown to these clubs, Danceteria, Palladium, Mud Club, all this. There was a lot of new wave people coming from England, and they had that Jamaican influence there because Jamaicans were in England since the 40s, and there were no Black Americans there. Right. So they were like a lot more valid, and in fact, all these new wave groups are based off reggae. The Police, Sting, and the Clash. So Bambaataa, even when he signed his contract, it was with the UK, and it was a tour in England. So the British new wave, they gravitated toward the West Indians because they didn't understand a West Indian didn't come here and start running Black American shit. And I think a lot of the Black Americans who really put in the work in hip hop with this whole continuation and evolution, at the time when they started putting up Flash and Herc, and they said, well, at least it's getting some coverage. It's not exactly true that these guys started it, but at least it's getting some mainstream coverage. So I think they just kind of rolled with it, and before it got out of hand. So that's my 2 cents. The last thing being, Jamaicans were part of hip hop in the 80s. That's when the government stopped bringing in heroin from Vietnam and started bringing coke in from South America up through the Caribbean. And that's when in the mid 80s, and that's when Jamaicans were stepping heavy. And that's when you saw the linen suits and the Bally's and the Travel Fox and Bobo. That's when Jamaicans got their name. And it wasn't West Indians and it wasn't Jamaicans. It was Kingstonians. It was Kingstonians who set that reputation.
Cool. Good information. Yeah.
And that's when everybody started respecting them. And those are my 2 cents. Lastly, there is one Jamaican in Black American music. I want to put some respect on his name. His name is Tom Bell. Thom.
Yes. I know. Yeah. The Philly sound, part of the Philly sound, yes.
That's right, a Kingstonian. So shout out him.
Right, yes, sir.
I'm going to jump off the panel. Big respect to Savior.
So I was saying, thank you so much.